This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we also take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 4th of March 2020, and I am DM.
I am Tuam.
And I am JM. So, in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Star, lawyers, politicians probed over Somalia. In the Standard, clash of the giants. And in the Daily Nation, big test for BBI. Absolutely. No cash for referendum.
Yes.
Kick us off. What's happening here?
With the Star. So it says lawyers, politicians probed over Somalia. Now, the Star is telling us that 11 MPs who went to see Farmajo and some lawyers are being investigated for espionage.
Yeah. Did they say which lawyers?
They did not, but we can... let's not do that.
We can put two and two together. Kenyans are smart enough to do that.
Absolutely, that they are spying for the government of Somalia.
Yeah.
See, if I was government, literally, I would shut down this story because they're the ones who look bad. We said here on Monday that government should have had intel about these MPs going to Somalia. Right? Now they can only speculate as to what happened, what was discussed. What will happen if they investigate, you know. I think there are other better ways of doing this, and we said it last time. Government should procure solutions or should profile solutions to Uhuru Kenyatta as to how to deal with this menace, because now it's becoming uncontrollable. And one of those things, because one of the things I suggested then was, let's sign a deal with the devil. And that is because you need to have leverage with the government of Somalia. Look, if they are signing pacts, defense pacts with Turkey and Qatar and all that, we will have such a problem even in the international courts because they will have a stronger position. Now, if GOK wants a stronger position, then it is time you start signing pacts with people you did not like before.
Wow. In terms of shutting down the story, I think perhaps the government could be doing dog whistling. And the people that they're talking to is us, because we're in the midst of a row with Somalia. So it works for them to point out the things that Somalia are doing that are contrary to our country's interests. And in that way, they gather the sentiment of the Kenyan people to be aligned with that of the government, in my view.
Well, plausible.
So we have a three-part criteria that we use to assess these headlines. Number one, is it topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking? And 3, thoughtful or just plain lazy. I'm not particularly enthused by it.
I actually think we should just throw it.
Toss it once and for all. In the Standard, clash of the giants. So what we're being told here is that there's a rift brewing between the DCI and the DPP. So according to DCI, the DPP is behaving suboptimally. DPP has hundreds of files dating back to April last year, which they have failed to prosecute. And on Monday, I think it was, the DCI decided to handle the case of the KPA MD and the KRA Commissioner for Customs, a guy called Kevin Safari, independently. So they bypassed the DPP. And in fact, we are told in this story that HAJI learnt of Manduku's arrest on the media, just like the rest of us. Ultimately, DCI and DPP failed to agree on the charges to be leveled against Manduku. And so the DPP failed to avail a charge sheet, forcing the court to release him. That's what this headline and the story is about. And I think what it tells us is that there are nested games going on.
Absolutely. If somebody is acting suboptimally, then they're nested in
more than one game.
So the DPP has some games going on. The DCI also has a lot of schemes going on.
In fact, I want to suggest that the giants that the headline is pointing to are not the faces that have been put there. Those are not the corresponding faces of the giant.
These are proxies.
They're proxies. They're acting on behalf of people who are way more powerful than they are.
Now, this I think should be a pointer to the powers that be. That if you want the fight on graft to go on well, these two need to be together, because if they are apart, then the powers that be are the ones that look bad.
No, that's the suboptimal.
I think it's a really good headline.
It is, it really is.
Interesting story. So we put that in the bay.
I think the Standard has been on a very good roll.
Good roll.
Absolutely. The Daily Nation is telling us that a big BBI roadblock is going to be Kenya shilling. is money. And what they're telling us is that because if the referendum is to be held this year, this was an unforeseen expense, so money was not allocated.
That's right.
The IEBC, the agency that would execute the referendum, has no money. In fact, they had been, Chebukati had asked for, I think it was 1 billion shillings in order to do continuous voter registration, which he was denied. So they're perhaps operating at a deficit. So no money there. And then the other agency that would perhaps they would draw money from would be the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. But they're usually not allocated money, so they have zero. They also say the national security is another place that they could draw money from. But their budget has not increased.
I think it's too early for a referendum anyway. Or even maybe too early, but also late, as you're saying, in terms of raising the money. I think they should just wait for
when things are important, money materializes, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, it's a very lazy article by the Daily Nation. Big test for BBI because no cash for referendum. What do you expect? You see, ministries and government departments normally give their proposals to the Treasury, and then Treasury makes a budget policy statement, which then leads to a budget. Right now, if there is need for budget money to be allocated or to be appropriated, it's very easy. You just go to a National Assembly, ask for a supplementary budget, a supplementary, supplementary monies, and you get your money. And this is when the boss says.
This is the problem with the supplementary budget. It has to be approved by the National Assembly. Which is okay. In that National Assembly, there are many people against whose interests the referendum would happen. There are many people who would vote for the referendum not to happen, and there are powerful people who would motivate them to not. It depends what's to shoot it down. It depends. And I think that is why the Daily Nation. I think they're also this is a dog whistling.
It's dog whistling, yes.
They're saying that. The people who want the referendum to happen are the president and Raila Odinga, and these are and the president can look to budgets like national security, etc.
But let me tell you,
then he's telling them there's no money there.
It all depends what's in the referendum. I doubt that the makers of a referendum would have it pass through Parliament if it does not serve the interests of those in Parliament.
Anyway, I think supplementary budget or no supplementary budget, when money is needed by certain people, it will materialize.
It will happen very fast. So that's why I'm saying it's lazy.
The headline itself.
They should go to the toilet.
All right. So that gives us a winning headline from the Standard. And on to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to assess them. Are the cartoons humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and finally effective or just plain lazy?
Yes, and here you have caricature of Babu Owino, Bakassi SMP, and he is hanging on a gavel. Is that what they call it?
A gavel, yes.
Yes, and the gavel is labeled bail terms. And Owino is telling the judge lower and lower and lower. And the caption there is above the law. I think he got lower bail terms on his murder charge yesterday. And wow, I was very surprised by that move. I don't know. But I don't think
not
it's
a
telling
particularly
us.
interesting one.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Permission to throw it?
Far away.
What's that?
On the Daily Nation, we have Uhuru Kenyatta with very long legs, and he's leaning or reclining on the map of Kenya, which is padded. And on the other, across from him, is the president of Somalia, President Farmajo, and he's also leaning on a padded Somalia, and his legs are stretched out to Kenya, so his feet are on Kenya, and President Uhuru's feet are on Somalia. And the caption there is Kenya-Somalia relationships in a nutshell.
Yes. I don't know. These two are very good. Uhuru Kenyatta last year went to his room where he was sleeping. His room to talk to him.
In New York?
No, right here in Kenya.
In Kenya?
Right here in Kenya. He went to his suite in a hotel. And now Farmajo is trying to fix him. Anyway.
Not particularly interesting. Now, what do we have in the Standard there?
It's the Standard. Where is it? It's right
We
here.
have Gado.
You have Gado. Oh, this is fantastic.
Okay, so we have a courtroom scenario with an advocate who looks like the devil's advocate, and he's saying, my lords, my clients support BBI. And his clients are behind him. There's
the dock.
In the dock. The first client there is undeniably and mistakably Sonko. The one next to him, I don't know who would this be, but he has the tongue, a forked tongue of a lizard. Next to him is Babu Owino, who we can tell from the ears, and then he has a long nose, so he's representing Pinocchio, who we know from fairy tales was a liar. Next to him is who I will assume is Sarah Wairimo, and she also has a forked tongue and some horns, devil's horns. And next to her is Echesa, who has been drawn as a monkey. You can tell from the tail there behind him that is in motion.
I love this cartoon. I love it. And what it's saying there, therefore, is, look, if you support BBI, you will be absolved of all your sins.
So a lawyer can use it as solid defense.
Solid defense.
It doesn't matter what you have done.
Absolutely, absolutely. As long as you're in the BBI bandwagon, you'll start afresh. You're born again.
Oh, yes.
What I found interesting in how Gado has drawn this cartoon is that everybody has been drawn to depict an animal that is devious or cunning, except Sonko. So Sonko doesn't need to be depicted as an animal because he suffices.
But the image itself.
He suffices.
But the image itself, when you see this kind of people, what do you think?
Absolutely, and that's what DM is saying. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
This cartoon is, when Gado puts out a good cartoon, he puts out very good work, cartoons. And this is
very good cartoon.
This is very good commentary.
Our winning cartoon.
Yes.
Very good.
Right. So what is our winning? What is our final thought? Sorry.
This week, guys, we continue to look at political strategies of the global political leaders. And today we go to Rwanda. The president of Rwanda, who is Paul Kagame. You want to give us an introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll begin Kagame's story in the year 1959, during the revolution in which the downtrodden Hutu nation overthrew the Tutsi aristocracy. He was about 2 years old then, and in that war, Hutu activists persecuted Tutsis, forcing more than 100,000 Tutsis to seek refuge in neighboring Uganda. And that's where Kagame grew up. He finished high school in Uganda in the early 1970s, and at the end of that decade, joined the rebel army of Yoweri Museveni. Museveni was at the time attempting to overthrow the government of Idi Amin. He succeeded in 1979, but shortly thereafter fell out with Milton Obote after Obote won the disputed 1980 election. So in 81, Museveni formed the National Resistance Army, NRA, and Kagame and a guy called Fred Rwigema joined as founding soldiers, along with 38 Ugandans. And they joined, those two, Kagame and Rwigema, these are also the founders of RPF. They joined because they knew they wanted to go back to Rwanda and overthrow the Hutu-dominated government. So in 1986, when the NRA captured Kampala, Museveni appointed Kagame and Rwigema as senior officers in the Ugandan army. Kagame was the head of military intelligence for a long time. But in 1989, Rwanda's president Habyarimana and many other Ugandans in the army began to criticize Museveni over his appointment of all these Rwandan refugees. And so he demoted them. And this really fast-tracked their plan to invade, to go back into Rwanda. And so in the year 1990, they formed what is now known as RPF, the Rwanda Patriotic Front, and they made some incursions into Rwanda. But shortly thereafter, the founder and the leader of this movement, the Fred Rwigema, was killed on the second day of the attack under unclear circumstances. And that's when Kagame was called back. He was actually in the US at that time doing a military course. And so he came back to now lead RPF. When he came back, RPF was in a poor state of affairs. They had really been, beaten up by the Rwandan army. And so when he came back, he led a tactical retreat to the Muhabura Mountains. Charles Obo Onyango, one of the journalists writing at that time, said the mountains were hell for RPF. Many RPF soldiers died from disease and even froze to death in those mountains. These mountains are bordering Uganda. And he says it was usual to find rebels posted on guard duty, frozen in their sitting positions in the morning, clutching their rifles. Dead. right? However, the advantage, he says, of the Muhabura Mountains was that once the rebels sneaked through and went up, it was impossible for the government troops to get them without being wiped out. Moreover, when the hardened surviving rebels eventually came down the mountain, after almost 1 year, nothing could stop them. And so Kagame comes down the mountain with all his RPF soldiers. They really they're hardened by that environment. And after they regrouped in 1992, they now make their way to Kigali. And in 1994, they eventually succeed after they bring down the airplane of the then President Habyarimana. And they basically establish they take over government after the genocide, establish control, and so Kagame became the vice president and minister of defense between the years 1994 and 2000. And then eventually in the year 2000 he becomes president.
Whoa.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. So that's how that was his kind of slow and steady rise to power.
Okay. Now, this man, and many of us have drunk the Western Kool-Aid of saying that he's a dictator. Oh, there's a reason why he gets 90% of the votes. It's because he is a dictator and is able to control the system. And I say, nope, this man actually lets the country breathe. You see, what he does, there is a national retreat. They call it the National Leadership Retreat. It's called as Umwi Herero in, I think, in those Rwandese languages of theirs. Now, this retreat is a retreat of government, of private sector, of the youth, of literally everybody. They come together for like 4 days, and their work is to discuss the problems of Rwanda, all right? And then they form solutions, and those solutions are done right there. And also resolutions as what will be completed within 1 year, all right? Now, they have had 17 of these retreats for the past, I think, about 17 years. Now, they've just finished one in February, all right? Now, I just want to say what they were able to achieve in the last one, all right? Now, in the last one, they had 16 resolutions, all right, which were translated into 57 action points. Now, 43 of those 55 action points were actually implemented. That's over 75.5% success rate. Now, I also want to go just through what the agenda of the meetings are, just for you to get a picture of how thoroughgoing they are. Now, you see, in the next 30 years, they're going to be moving away from business as usual. It will be business unusual. Second point, filling the gaps in the healthcare systems. That's paving the way to specialized healthcare. Third, education and skills. The journey to universal access to world-class quality education. 4, economy of the future, private sector at the forefront of achieving Vision 2050. It is not government leading theirs, it is private sector. 5th, strategies for winning the fight against graft. And 6th, a shift of global political climate. How prepared are they? Now, there's another country that does the same, Tanzania. Magufuli, if you watch, has town hall meetings with everybody. If you're in private sector and someone in government has slighted you before or has asked for a bribe on your business, you say, ule mtu alinitisha rushwa, rais anauliza, nani amekutisha ule pale, say, wewe umeitisha, funga yeye, you know? It is very thoroughgoing. And, I want to say here, maybe it is something the powers that be could adopt. You see, why do we have a presidential delivery unit, for example? All right. Well, you can organize a retreat and say, I am going to have 57 action points. Well, let's even implement 50. That is a scorecard by itself. You can be able to control, you can monitor, you can execute, and you can be able to just know what your country is going to achieve within 1 year.
Absolutely.
So meetings, huh?
Meetings,
meanwhile, in
retreats.
Kenya, Jubilee can't meet.
We can have BBI. We can have BBI every single year without actually calling it BBI. You can call it a national retreat. Let's all meet and discuss our problems and say this is working, this is not working. How do you go about it?
You know what I think Kagame has incorporated into his political strategy is business strategy. He's actually running Rwanda like a corporation. And integral in a business strategy is a marketing strategy. Remember or how the world sees Rwanda. Remember that they are post-genocide country. And by the time Kagame took power, Rwanda was largely considered a basket case, economically and especially socially. It had really been ravaged. Now, 26 years later, there's a Rwandan model.
Yes.
The same way there was a Singaporean or a Singapore model.
Absolutely.
Why? Because Kagame has been deliberate about making Kigali in particular the antithesis or the opposite of many African countries around the world, around the continent.
Yes.
That are defined by chaos.
Yes,
meanwhile, Kigali is very clean and orderly. Anybody who goes to Kigali comes back proclaiming the good news. You know, in comparison to other countries. The other thing, so he has marketed the country itself. You know, attracting FDI and whatnot. But he's also marketed himself.
Oh, yes.
A Kigali salesman or woman will tell you that he's fashioned himself as a savior.
Oh, yes.
And in two ways. Savior from the genocide. He's, you know, he's seen as the man who was capable of halting it. And then thereafter, the man who was able to craft a method of reconciliation which lasted until now. Now couple that with the progress, he, you know, this is why people, 60% of the voting population voted for a constitutional amendment that increased his term limit beyond what he had legally.
Absolutely.
Or he was legally required to.
And you know what Charles Onyango Bo says? If you don't like Kagame, if you don't like Museveni, please don't go for an interview with those people. Don't go and interview them. Because if you see them in person and if you interview them, they will charm you like a nonsense.
You go and do the opposite.
You go there having drank their Kool-Aid, and having believing their story, and all of a sudden, all your hate for them, it just melts away. It dissipates.
I mean, they're really smart. That's how Kagame, despite everything, he's been able to gain himself such political currency at home, in the continent, and beyond.
The only country you can set up a business from your computer is Rwanda. You were there the other day.
Absolutely.
You can attest to
I drank that Kool-Aid. I will leave you. I will leave you with a quote from Lee Kuan Yew on a day that we had a headline and winning cartoon from the Standard. Discipline before democracy, and I believe that is also the philosophy of Kagame in Rwanda.
That's a loaded quote. Very appropriate.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens. Find us on Pan Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times. Have a good evening.